Imagine you're a traveler walking through a deep forest. The ancient trees seem to be nodding off in a peaceful slumber. Everything seems fine, but you can't shake off this uneasy feeling. You shouldn't have taken such a long break at noon. The dusk has started to settle in, and who knows how long till you reach the next village. You walk a little while more. The trees start melting into the darkness, and all you can see is eerie shadows. The screeches of animals sound a bit louder now. But it's alright, it's not your first time out at night. You notice something glistening in the distance. It looks like a water surface. You decide to take a closer look. You move cautiously, and then... what is this? Is the tree glowing? It can't be fire. Fire doesn't come in such real greenish blue shades. This could only mean one thing. Goblin fire. Today we're supposed to talk about this story from Korean folklore that's about a guy who made his wives eat his leg. That's it, I'm not going to elaborate. Everything was going fine. I was just doing my research and being like, oh yeah, that's a cool thing to tell, that's a cool thing to tell. And the story started branching out in other mini stories. And I was like, that's going to cause trouble. And that's why I decided that today we're just going to cover some magical objects that appear in that story. Objects that the monster in the story feared. So, those were willow tree branches, iron, and eggs. Sounds like a weird combination, right? Wouldn't you want to know more about it? Because I certainly did. And so I decided that first I'm gonna look up the willows. Willows have been used for medical purposes for a long time. Yep, willows are cool. They're like a medicine type thing. And I don't know, is this related? But people consider them, well, you know, in East Asia and particularly Korea. We are going to talk about Korea today. Okay, so people consider them to have strong yang energy. You know, yin and yang, yin is the dark and woo, and yang is the light, bright, male. So yeah, it is considered that willows have strong yang energy and it scares the ghost away. And that's why shamans in Korea would sometimes get willow branches and while doing an how is it called? Exorcism thing? Exorcising. Shooing the demon off the person, okay? So while they're doing that, they grab those willow branches and they start. and they beat the human so that they can get the demon away. The demon doesn't like the willow branches. Another cool thing about willows is that in China, the character for willow and the character for staying, remaining, are both read the same way, like Leo. That's why there is this practice of when old friends are bidding each other goodbye, they would get small pieces of willow branch and give it to each other. It's this cute little ritual of saying, I will remember you. It is so cute. But yeah, there are a lot of such associations of characters being read the same way. And to be fair, they're always so interesting. For example, the character for 4 and the character for death are read the same way. And that's why 4 is a bad number in China and well in Korea. But yeah, there are many such. Someday I might make a video on them because they are a whole... well, it's not can of worms. I wouldn't say can of worms. Can of butterflies because they're so cool. But yeah, we are trying to stick to a topic. So we're moving on. So, willows, remembrance, cute stuff. And actually, if you have watched the Winter Olympics, I'm personally not a sports person. I bet you couldn't tell. But during the Winter Olympics in Beijing 2022, there was a part about remembrance. And they had dancers going out and, you know, waving willow tree branches, recreating the whole symbolism of willows and remembrance. And that is so wholesome. Okay, and now on to the glowing willow trees. Pretty much, I was reading, everything was fine. Well, like, willows have young energy, this is cool, this is cool. And then, out of the nothing, I see this statement. So rotten willows could glow, and that glow is considered by people 도깨비불. What's 도깨비불? That's goblin fire. Okay, wait. Goblin fire, cool. Did you just say that rotten willows glow? What? Why? What? And so I was like, okay, let's Google this some more. I searched in Korean first and I found nothing more. No further elaboration. It was just like, yeah, well, rotten willow trees glow. Don't you know that? Like, no, I don't know that. So I was like, okay, let's try Googling in English. Glowing willow trees. Rotten glowing willow trees. Nothing. And I was feeling a little bit discouraged, like, what's going on? Is this some mythical, legendary thing that only the Koreans have heard of? What's going on? It's not. Okay. So then I, in my desperation, just wrote, can trees naturally glow? I was desperate. And this led me to the right answer. In the Google search, there was something like, in India, there are bioluminescent fungi, and while trees can't glow on their own, if they get those fungi, they seem like they're glowing. And I was like, bingo! Of course, that's why the willow is rotten. Because it's just dying, rotting, and there are fungi feeding off of it, and they happen to glow. I mean, in hindsight, after I've done the research, I'm like, of course, like, what else would it be? But it wasn't like that when I first found that statement. So it is what it is, but yeah. And then I searched up, okay, bioluminescent fungi in China, Korea, Japan, and bingo once more. There are such species there, and they're even a little bit like an attraction in Japan. Like, people go see them. That's so cool. Now I want to see such. I don't know, do we have in my country? I should have looked that up. Okay, staying on topic. So yeah, you can imagine just a willow at night glowing in these weird colors. Because I'd imagine people back then, what they had fire, that's cool. But such bluish, greenish glows, that's weird. I mean, I would get freaked out if I saw them now. And we have all that technology. Because, like, what would I think? Like, would I be like, oh yeah, that's probably somebody flashing their phone on the trees? Like, I would be, what the heck is this? Why is the tree before me glowing green? What's going on? And to be fair, goblin fire makes perfect sense. For the record, it's called foxfire in Japan. But yeah, cool stuff. Foxes are evil. Woo! Now though, because we are talking about Korea, I want to tell you more about the goblins. I keep calling them goblins because that's kind of what they are translated in English, but they are 도깨비. And that is a thing on their own. Don't imagine greenish little creepy creatures with weird ears. Not really. It's not your typical Western goblin. Goblins in Korean literature, they're so cool because they have so many various descriptions. Like, there is a sort of general consensus on what they are, but it varies from story to story. And the most typical goblin depiction is those huge, tall men that have long hair. A thing that they are known for is that they like to wrestle people on the road. They stop the traveler and are like, let's wrestle. And I don't know what kind of wrestling are you imagining, but it's called siram, and it's like a Korean folklore traditional type of wrestling. They like doing that, which would make sense. Like, if you think that goblins are like these small creepy little creatures, you'd be like, what the heck, who are you wrestling? But if you imagine them as those huge men, like a thing appears before you and it's like, let's wrestle. Oh my god, scary stuff. Another thing that's interesting about the Korean dokebi is that, you know how I told you that they looked kind of human? That's because the storytellers, they were like, we have to keep the sense of believability. And that was just an interesting thought. That sometimes the scariest stuff don't have to be creepy, evil, 10 legs, 10 horns, whatever, but just like human looking creatures. That could be terrifying. But there are other depictions of the Korean dokkaebi. Sometimes they are described as being blue or being on one leg. And the blue one-legged dokkaebi are way more scary than your average dokkaebi. Also, there are some female ones. They are described as way more intelligent than the male ones. But there is a trick. Like, they are usually involved in stories that are about loving a human and just having a relationship with a human. And that's cool and all, but the trick is that if they have some kerfuffle with that human, they are very likely to make that human's life way more miserable than a male dokkaebi could ever wish. So there is that. There are also types of day dokkaebi. Usually dokkaebi show up at night, but the ones that show up during the day are way more evil and cunning. Because you know, if you have the guts to be a big creepy monster and show up during the daytime, you mean business. You're not afraid of anything. That's how I suppose the logic goes. Don't quote me on that. That's just how I suppose things go. Now, a lot more can be said about goblins, but I'm just gonna highlight a few stuff. Otherwise, they're gonna be a topic on their own. Okay. Cool stuff about them. They have magical hats that can turn a person invisible. Another thing is that they fear blood. They fear horse blood. And in some depictions, they fear cow blood. And get that. That's gonna be a little bit scandalous. They fear menstrual blood. Yep, they do. And this leads me to, how do goblins happen to be? They're not born by a mama goblin. Okay, so how they happen to be? Legend says that when people have an object in their house that is like an old object that they've stopped using, this object turns into a goblin. Yeah. Usually, this object is a broom, but not necessarily always. There are other variations of this belief that say that it's not just that the object should be old, but it should be covered in human or animals' blood or secretions. And the blood could sometimes be menstrual blood. Yep, I said it. Okay, yep. Well, that's how it be. And then there was some explanation about how women would sit on the floor to make the fire, and they would have brooms nearby, and if it's that time of the month, the blood gets on the broom, and it was a little bit messy, but folklore is messy. Now that I derailed into the dokkaebi, let me just return back to the egg and the iron. All I'm gonna say about the egg right now, because eggs are a very complex part of mythology. They appear in many places, they have many meanings, but what I'm gonna say here is that what frightened the monster in that particular story that I'm gonna talk about later on in a different video is that the egg doesn't, like, it looks like a human face, right? You've seen eggs, you've seen how, you know, human face. But it doesn't have ears, nose, mouth, eyes, so it's like this human face with no senses. It's frightening. There's even an egg ghost in Korean mythology. That's for a different day though, but eggs do be feared. Eggs do be weird. And finally, iron. Now, I searched a lot about iron and nobody agrees on anything in particular, so I'm just gonna tell you the theories that circulate around. Iron is feared not just by Korean ghosts. Iron is feared by a lot of fairy folk and other mythical creatures. Iron be scary. So what I saw as possible explanations is that long ago, before the Iron Age, people would extract iron from fallen meteors, and so it would be like this thing, that celestial thing that fell from the sky, sent by the gods to the humans to create stuff with it. So it was kind of like feared because of that, possibly. There was another theory about how, you know, weapons are made with iron, and like during a conflict they're viewed as something destructive. And there was a theory, like that iron objects are man-made thing that is just scary. So let's say the fairy folk or whatever are part of nature, and they are in clash with this cultural thing, with this human, man-made, not natural thing. And it is also thought that there is something magical in the art that blacksmiths perform by welding iron and turning this hot liquid into creations. So even though there is no one definitive answer on the question of why iron was so scary, it still sounded like a cool enough fact to tell you about. And if you have heard something more about iron, I'd love to hear it. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for sticking around. I hope it was fun and entertaining for you. Oh, and yeah, today I experimented talking a bit more loudly, because that was feedback that I received by some people, like that I speak too quietly. To be fair, all my life I've spoken quietly, and a lot of people have had problems with that. I am trying to work on it, so we'll see did it work today. But that's besides the point. But I hope I could improve. Yeah. And that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you later. Bye.